graph drawn for us, but we need to draw the second part of that same curve. And we're told that the equation is the 3x squared minus 5 over x. It's been drawn for us from 0 to 5. We now need to draw it from minus 5 to 0. So we're just going to use our calculator for this. We're going to go to y equals, and the equation that we're wanting to draw is 3x squared minus, and then it's a fraction, 5 over x. Okay, and we can just check it definitely looks correct. And then we're going to go to graph, and we need to graph and see what it looks like. Now, it would make sense to change the window to the window that we were given in the question, which goes from 80 to 40. So from 80 to, minus 60, and from minus 5 to 5 on the x. So the x is negative 5 to 5. And then the y-axis is negative 60 up to 80. And this time we can see it a little bit more clearly. So we can see that we have this second part roughly kind of looking a little bit like a kind of squashed U shape. Okay, so we know it's roughly something like this. However, we need it to be more exact than that. So we're going to need to find the minimum point, just so that we know roughly that we've got it in the right place. So we can do second function trace, and then we can find the minimum value. And we know it's somewhere between here, and it's at minus 0.9 and 7.9. So we can now go back to our drawing and just make sure that it's a little bit more accurately drawn. So we know that it's almost at minus 1 and it's at minus 7, so it's not quite halfway up. And then we can draw back on our kind of curved U shape. Okay. So for this one, there is 3 marks. One of them is for the shape, so roughly having the shape correct. One of them is for having the minimum point in the right positioning. And then the last one is for making sure that you don't cross the y-axis. Okay, so don't cross the y-axis, because as you'll see later, that's actually an asymptote, and we don't want to cross the asymptote. So we need to write down the x-coordinate of the minimum point. Well, we've already worked that out, which is nice. So this question is just going to be minus, so x is equal to minus 0.941038. And again, we need to always make sure that we're writing it to 3 significant figures, which means that it's just minus 0. I'll just show the exam paper. Here we go. So minus 0.941. And it needs to be written as x equals minus 0.941. Okay, it can't be written as a coordinate because it's asking what the x coordinate is. So it's asking specifically for the x value, not as the whole coordinate. And then part C, we need to use the calculator to find the solutions to f of x equals 20. So that is if we had an additional line on there, which was at 20, what are the solutions? So it's asking me for 1, 2, 3 solutions. There are 3 places here where it crosses my original graph. So I'm going to go back to my GDC, and this time I'm going to plot the line y equals 20 so that I can see this 20 is on there. So we now need to find where those intersections lie. So second function trace, and we're looking for the intersections. Okay, so I'm just going to take it towards this one on the left-hand side. First graph, second graph, enter. So the first one there is where x is equal to minus 2.4. And to 3 significant figures, it's 2.4 5. And then we're going to repeat that same process again. So intersections. And this time we're going to move across towards the second one. So first curve, second curve, enter. And this one is where x is equal to, and then to 3 significant figures, minus 0.252. And then the same thing again for the third point. And it's 3 marks, so that gives you an idea that it's 3 different points. So again, the same thing again. And to 3 significant figures, that one is 2.70. Okay, so 698 would round to 70. And it should be presented like this. So you have an x equals, and then your 3 different answers. It should not be written as a coordinate. You would not get it right if you wrote it as a coordinate, because it's not actually got any y value on there. If we think about what it's asking, it's when f of x, so f of x is 3x squared minus 5 over x. So when that is equal to 20, if I look at that equation, it doesn't have a y value. So there should be no coordinate, it's just in terms of x. So it's 3 marks. There is 2 marks, 2 marks. There are 2 marks awarded for all 3. And then there's 1 mark awarded for 2 of them correct. You also needed to make sure that you wrote them to 3 significant figures. So if they were not to 3 significant figures, then they may look right, but actually be incorrect. And then the last part of this question is to write down the equation of the vertical asymptote. So the vertical asymptote, if I go back to my graph, is where have I got a hole in my domain. And you can see here just from the graph that it's at x is equal to 0. This line doesn't get very close, and this line. So it's at x equals to 0. And that's 1 mark for writing that down. And again, it does ask for the equation, and therefore it does need to be written as x equals. You can find this on your calculator as well. So if you go to the table of values, and we can see here when x, this is the column for x, is equal to 0, we have the error, and therefore x equals 0, which is my error here, is the asymptote. So we would just write x equals to 0.